My mom abandoned me as a kid to marry a man who hated children. Years later, she came back begging, then faked assault injuries to extort me. 8 years. That's how long my mother ghosted me, leaving me utterly shattered after my dad died. But when she finally showed up again, it wasn't for me. It was because her perfect new life had crumbled, and she wanted me to pick up the pieces. And if you think that sounds messed up, just wait, because her entitlement only escalated from there. I was only 12, just a kid, when my whole world imploded. My dad, the man who made everything feel safe, who stacked pancakes into towers just to make me laugh, he passed away from cancer. It was devastating. He'd been sick, yeah, but deep down, I refused to believe it. I thought he'd somehow just get better, but he didn't. And suddenly, our house, our whole life, just felt empty. He was my anchor. He was the one who tucked me in, read me stories even when I swore I was too old. All of that just gone. My mom, Tracy, well, she just didn't know how to comfort me. Or maybe she didn't want to. I honestly don't know the truth even now. All I know is, she stopped trying. For months, I was a ghost myself, walking through a fog of grief, crying myself to sleep, just wishing, praying, my dad would come back. Through all that raw pain, though, I clung to one thing. I still had my mom. Even if she wasn't herself, even if she was distant, she was there. I told myself we'd get through it, that she just needed time. But then, one day, she sat me down. My heart sank. She told me I was going to live with my grandparents. Permanently. At first, I didn't get it. I thought maybe it was like a summer visit. A few weeks while she sorted things out. But no, she made it crystal clear. This wasn't a temporary thing. She wasn't coming back for me. I begged her. I begged her not to leave. I promised, through hot, choking tears, that I'd be good. I'd clean my room without being asked. I'd do all my homework. I wouldn't bother her if that's what she wanted. But none of it mattered. Her mind was made up. She was gone. After she dropped me off at my grandparents' house, I called her constantly. I'd sit by the phone, dial her number over and over, just hoping she'd pick up. Sometimes she did. Her voice was ice cold, though, like I was a stranger. She told me to stop calling. She said I was making things harder for her. She told me I needed to accept things and move on. My own mother. I was so confused. How could she act like this? I knew she was sad about Dad, but why did she suddenly not want me? I tortured myself, wondering if she blamed me for his death, even though that made no sense. I picked apart every memory, desperate to find what I'd done wrong. Then, the truth finally, brutally hit me. My mom had met someone new. Some man. And he had one condition for marrying her. She had to get rid of me. He didn't want to raise another man's kid. And just like that, she chose him over me. Her own child. I remember feeling utterly numb when I found out. How could she? How could she pick a near stranger over her own flesh and blood? How could she just forget about me? For years, I truly believed it was my fault. That if I'd been smarter, quieter, a better kid, she would have wanted me. I spent so many years feeling like I was broken, that I wasn't enough to be loved. My grandparents, bless their hearts, tried their absolute best. They filled the void as much as they could. But it wasn't the same. They were older, and they didn't always know what to do with a grieving, abandoned kid. I had no one to talk to about the swirling mess of emotions inside me. I even stopped trying in school for a while. What was the point? My mom didn't care. She wasn't even there. This was 8 years ago. 8 long years of absolute silence. No calls, no letters, nothing. It was like I had simply ceased to exist to her. At first, I kept hoping. I'd tell myself she'd change her mind, that she just needed time, or maybe she was too embarrassed. I waited on my birthdays, thinking, surely today. I waited for holidays, for graduation. I'd scan the crowd, imagining her finally showing up, a proud smile on her face. But she was never there. She never called. She never asked how I was, or about my grades, or if I was eating right. She had erased me. Eventually, the endless waiting, the endless hoping, it just faded. I stopped picking up the phone expecting her. I stopped checking the mail. The hope, that little flicker I clung to, finally went out. It hurt. God, it hurt so much. But what else could I do? I had to move on. My grandparents became my world. They didn't always have the right words when I was hurting, but they were there. And that meant everything. They showed up for everything, even when they didn't quite understand it. Grandma would make my favorite meals on bad days. Grandpa always had some kind of advice. They made me feel safe, loved. Still, even as I moved on, she was always there, a shadow in the back of my mind. I wondered where she was, what she was doing. Was she happy? Did she ever think about me? Did she regret it? Sometimes, lying awake, I'd remember little things. How she used to tuck my hair behind my ear when I was upset. Her lavender scent. I hated that I still missed her. I hated that I couldn't just let her go completely. Then, last week, out of nowhere, my phone rang. Unrecognized number. I answered like I always do. And then I heard it. Her voice. "Hi, honey." I froze. Seriously, I actually froze. For a second, I thought I was hallucinating. I hadn't heard her voice in so long it felt unreal. But it was her. No doubt. Like nothing had ever happened. Like she hadn't disappeared for 8 years. This wave of anger and confusion just boiled up inside me. "What do you want?" I managed to choke out. She tried to make small talk. "How are you?" she asked. How dare she? After 8 years of absolute radio silence. That was her opening line? I told her I had nothing to say. I was so mad, my brain felt scrambled. All those years of pain came rushing back. The nights crying myself to sleep, the constant nagging thought that I wasn't good enough. It all hit me. I told her she didn't get to just waltz back into my life like this. But she insisted. She said it was important. A matter of life and death. That stopped me dead. As much as every fiber of my being wanted to hang up and forget her forever, I couldn't. What if something really was wrong? So, against my better judgment, I agreed to meet. We met at a cafe. I spotted her right away. She looked older, obviously. But more than that, she looked tired. Dark circles under her eyes, her hair thin and dull. For a fleeting second, I almost felt sorry for her. She smiled when she saw me, a genuine, happy smile. I didn't smile back. I just sat down across from her, and we sat in silence for a moment. I just stared, waiting. Finally, she broke the quiet. "How are you doing?" Again. She actually asked me again. After everything. That's where she thought she could start? I kept my answers short, cold. I wasn't going to give her anything more. Then she told me she'd been keeping tabs on me. Through my grandparents. She knew I'd graduated. Knew where I worked. Even knew about some of my friends. Part of me felt utterly creeped out. Like she'd been watching me from the shadows without ever bothering to reach out. But a bigger part of me was just furious. If she cared enough to know those things, why didn't she care enough to be there? Then came the apology. She said she'd made a mistake abandoning me. Claimed that after Dad died, she was in a dark place, so lost and broken, she couldn't think straight. Said she was scared and overwhelmed, and didn't know how to be a single mom. But the kicker? She said she needed the support of a man. I swear to God, I couldn't believe she said that out loud. As if sending me away was some hard, tragic choice she had no control over. She kept going, saying how sorry she was, how she wished she'd done things differently, how she thought about me every day and regretted everything. But I couldn't forgive her. I couldn't erase the memory of being that scared, heartbroken kid, waiting by the phone for a call that never came. The kid who cried himself to sleep on his birthday, wondering why his own mother didn't want him. The kid who spent years feeling like he wasn't good enough to be loved. I can't do this, I told her. I don't have it in me to just pretend things are okay. She looked like she wanted to say more, but I didn't give her the chance. I grabbed my bag, stood up, and walked out. After that, she started calling. And calling. At first, I ignored her. Every time my phone rang, that same anger bubbled up. Her voice, even in my voicemail, made me sick. But she didn't stop. Sometimes multiple times a day. I never answered. I honestly didn't care what she wanted anymore. I'd spent too many years hurting because of her, and I wasn't about to let her back in just because she suddenly felt like it. When I ignored her calls for days, she started texting. Long messages, short ones, just "please call me," or "I really need to talk to you." I blocked her number. Then she started using different ones. Every time I blocked one, another would pop up. It felt like she was everywhere, like I couldn't escape. At first, it was just frustrating. How could she have the nerve? But then, it got exhausting. Every time my phone buzzed, I felt this tight, anxious knot in my chest. Even if it was just a friend, or spam, my brain kept expecting her. I felt trapped. Finally, I called my grandparents. I was frustrated, tired, and honestly, I needed answers. I knew they were the only ones who could tell me what was going on. As soon as my grandma picked up, I asked her straight out, "Why did you give her my number?" There was a moment of silence. A telling silence. I could picture her on the other end, wringing her hands like she does when she feels guilty. Eventually, she sighed. And then she told me the whole story. Apparently, my mom's life hadn't exactly gone to plan. After she married that new husband, the one she literally gave me up for, they'd been trying to have kids for years. My mom, it turns out, thought she could just hit reset, build this perfect little family, and forget her past. But it didn't work out. My grandma said they tried everything, but Mom couldn't get pregnant. Doctors, treatments, years of hope. Nothing. Now she's older, and she can't have kids at all. And her husband? He wasn't okay with that. He left her, because he still wanted children, and my mom couldn't give them to him. So, after all those years, after ignoring me completely, she suddenly wanted me back in her life. Not because she finally cared, but because her perfect dream had shattered. She wanted me to play happy family now, because her selfish choices had finally caught up to her. I felt sick to my stomach. I asked Grandma why they gave her my number, why they'd facilitated this. She said they thought I deserved to know the truth. That maybe Mom had changed and was trying to make things right. I know they meant well, but honestly, it just felt like one more thing being dumped on me. Since that phone call, my mom hasn't stopped. She's still trying to contact me, texting, calling, leaving voicemails where she cries and says how sorry she is. She talks about how much she misses me, how she just wants a second chance. But every time I hear her voice, I feel cold. All the old pain just rushes back. What does she expect? Does she actually think we can just pretend like none of this ever happened? That I can just forget all those years of feeling abandoned and unloved? Sometimes I feel guilty, like maybe I'm being too harsh. But then I remember all those nights I spent crying, wondering why I wasn't good enough. I remember how hard it was to grow up feeling like I didn't matter. I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to block her on everything and never look back. But another part keeps wondering, what if she is really sorry? What if she's changed? I'm so confused. I'm just so tired of it all. What would you do? Update 1. The ambush. Alright. So, it's only been 2 weeks since I last talked about this, but things have already gotten crazier. Yesterday, my grandparents invited me over for dinner. Honestly, I was looking forward to it. But the second I walked in, I knew something was off. My grandma greeted me at the door, but her smile was too big, too forced. She kept fussing with her hair, her hands restless. My grandpa was glued to the TV, which is so unlike him. Usually, he'd be up to hug me, ask about my day. This time, he barely looked my way. I tried to brush it off, tried to just enjoy the evening. We sat down to eat, and for a few minutes, it actually felt normal. But just as I was about to start eating, I heard her voice. From the hallway. My mom. She was there. My grandparents had invited her. Without telling me, I felt completely blindsided. Blindsided, and honestly, absolutely furious. I'd been ignoring her calls and texts for weeks, and now she just shows up like this? I didn't even say anything at first. I just stood up. I was going to leave. She started talking immediately, a torrent of words. I just want to explain myself. I'm sorry. I need you to hear me out. I told her I had nothing to say, but she wouldn't stop. And then she brought up my dad. She actually said he wouldn't have wanted me to shut her out like this, that he would have wanted us to fix things. Hearing her say that, it felt like a physical punch to the gut. She had the nerve to talk about him? I snapped. I screamed that she didn't get to talk about my dad. I was so angry, so close to tears, I just tried to push past her. But she grabbed my arm. Without even thinking, I shoved her back. Not hard, just enough to make her stumble. And that's when she completely lost it. She started screaming that I had assaulted her, that she was calling the police. She kept yelling that she wouldn't leave until I talked to her. Thankfully, my grandparents finally stepped in. My grandpa, usually so calm, told her to stop. Grandma backed him up, saying they'd seen what happened. They told her to leave. But she kept fighting them, insisting I had attacked her. Eventually, after a lot of screaming and back and forth, she finally stormed out. She slammed the door so hard one of the pictures on the wall nearly fell. After she left, my grandparents were so apologetic. They said they thought if we were all together, in a calm environment, maybe we could finally talk things through. They genuinely believed it would help. Instead, it just made everything so much worse. I told them I wasn't mad at them, but honestly, I was just exhausted. Every time I started to feel okay, she found a way to drag me back into her mess. I know I shouldn't have pushed her, but I just couldn't take it anymore. I was tired of her acting like she cared now that her life had fallen apart. After years of silence, she suddenly wanted to make things right, not because she missed me, but because she needed something from me. I haven't heard from her since, but I doubt this is the end. I don't know what her next move will be, but I am so unbelievably tired of this whole thing. Update 2. The scam. I really, truly hoped that last incident would be the end of it. But of course, my mom couldn't just leave things alone. About a week after the dinner disaster, I started getting texts from her again. At first, I ignored them, like I always do. But then, she started sending pictures. Photos of her arm in a sling, bruises on her shoulder, even one of her wearing a neck brace. She claimed I had seriously injured her when I attacked her at my grandparents' house. And then she started demanding money. $5,000, to be exact. She said she needed it for medical bills, and that if I didn't pay, she'd sue me for assault. I was stunned. First of all, I barely pushed her. There's no way I hurt her like that. Second, this was just so typical of her. Twisting things, playing the victim. At first, I ignored her. I figured she was bluffing, hoping I'd panic and send her money just to make her go away. But then she started contacting my grandparents, telling them I had seriously injured her and was refusing to help with her medical costs. She painted this whole picture of struggling, unable to work, barely able to take care of herself. Then she started reaching out to some of my friends. I don't even know how she found some of them, but she messaged a few people I'm close with, telling them I had beaten her and was refusing to take responsibility. She told one friend she was thinking about pressing charges and hoped they could talk some sense into me. I was beyond furious, but honestly, not even surprised. This is just what she does. She twists things until she looks like the victim. The most ridiculous part was that the pictures she sent didn't even look real. The bruises were way too dark, perfectly shaped, almost like she'd just smeared makeup on herself. The neck brace picture looked especially fake. She had a full face of makeup, perfectly styled hair, clearly posing for it. But the final straw was yesterday. She actually showed up at my work. She just walked right into the lobby and started causing a scene, loudly telling people that her abusive daughter refused to pay for her medical bills. She even started fake crying, telling random strangers how her only child had beaten her and left her to suffer. My manager had to ask her to leave, and security ended up walking her out. It was humiliating, but thankfully, my coworkers knew enough of the situation and didn't believe her for a second. The worst part of all this is that I'm genuinely worried she will try to take me to court. I doubt she has any real proof, but she's manipulative enough to twist the truth and make things sound far worse than they were. At this point, I feel like she's just trying to wear me down. She's hoping I'll eventually just give her the money to make her disappear. I've blocked her on everything again, and I'm looking into getting some legal advice, just in case. Honestly, I just want her out of my life for good, but it feels like she's determined to keep pulling me back in. Update 3. The new plan. I thought things were finally over. But of course, my mom couldn't just leave well enough alone. After weeks of her threatening to sue me, I found out she dropped the whole thing. Apparently, she couldn't afford a lawyer, which honestly wasn't surprising. She's never been great with money, and I figured she was just bluffing the whole time. Still, it was a huge relief knowing I didn't have to deal with that on top of everything else. But just when I thought I could finally breathe, I found out she had moved into my grandparents' house. I honestly couldn't believe it when my grandma told me. When she called to check in, she just casually mentioned that my mom was living there now. Apparently, after her husband left her, she told my grandparents she had nowhere else to go and just guilt-tripped them into letting her stay. My grandma was really conflicted about it. She said she didn't want to turn her own daughter away, especially since my mom was struggling. But I know exactly what happened. My mom played the victim, like she always does. She probably cried about being homeless, swore she had changed. And my grandparents, being the kind and trusting people they are, fell for it. Now I feel like I can't even visit them without having a run-in with her. My grandparents told me I'm always welcome, and that they'd make sure things stayed calm, but I don't trust her to act normal. Knowing my mom, she'd probably try to corner me, or start some dramatic scene just to make herself look like the victim again. It's so frustrating because my grandparents are some of the only family I have left. They've been there for me when no one else was, and now I feel like she's trying to take that from me, too. I know they mean well, but I wish they could see how manipulative she is. For now, I've just been calling them more often instead of visiting. I hate that it's come to this, but I don't know what else to do. The last thing I want is to show up, get ambushed, and have her twist things all over again. Update 4. The breaking point. I'm so frustrated right now, and honestly, I just needed to vent. After my mom moved in with my grandparents, I kept hearing bits and pieces about how things weren't going great. At first, my grandparents didn't say much. They'd just brush things off or say she was going through a hard time. But I knew something was wrong. Eventually, I found out what was really happening. My mom hasn't even tried to get a job since she moved in. Instead, she's been relying on my grandparents for everything. Food, gas, clothes, you name it. And of course, she's constantly borrowing money from them. I say borrowing, but we all know she's never going to pay them back. My grandma told me that my mom promises she's just getting back on her feet, but it's clear she's just taking advantage of them. It makes my blood boil because my grandparents are retired, living on a fixed income. They're not struggling yet, but they've always been so careful with their money. Seeing her treat them like her personal ATM just infuriates me. I tried talking to them about it. I sat them down and explained that she was just using them, that she wasn't even trying to get her life together. But they kept defending her. My grandma said she was family, and they couldn't just throw her out. My grandpa admitted he was frustrated, but he said they were just trying to give her a chance. I felt like I was banging my head against a brick wall. No matter what I said, they just wouldn't listen. Then, about a week ago, everything finally came to a head. One night, I got a call from my grandma, and I could tell right away that something was very, very wrong. She told me that my mom had been dropped off at their house by a police officer. Apparently, she'd been out drinking somewhere and caused a scene. I don't know all the details, but the officer ended up driving her home because she was too drunk to get herself there. That was it. For my grandparents. My grandpa, who's usually the calmest person I know, had finally had enough. The next morning, they told my mom she had 1 month to figure out where she was going to live. They said they weren't going to let her stay there any longer. My grandma told me she felt guilty about it, but they both agreed it was the right thing to do. Honestly, giving her a month is more than fair. Knowing my mom, she's probably going to spend most of that time feeling sorry for herself instead of actually figuring things out. But at least my grandparents are finally putting their foot down. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I feel this wave of relief knowing my grandparents are standing up for themselves. They've done so much for me over the years, and they deserve better than to be treated like this. Thank you to everyone for your support throughout this whole mess. It's been a tough road, but I'm actually hopeful that things are finally starting to turn around.